Welcome to the Coffee and Counseling Podcast, where two licensed psychotherapists give you their unfiltered opinions on mental health, wellness, life, and everything in between. It's real, raw, and ready to challenge what you think you know. Get ready for some tough love. Before we begin, just a brief disclaimer, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not take the place of therapy. We hope you enjoyed today's session. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Coffee and Counseling, where we don't spill the tea, but the coffee will be piping hot while we talk about all things counseling. We're your hosts, Rachel Steinhardt
and Stephanie Schaick, and today we're flipping the script quite literally. We just talked about mornings, but the truth is a good morning actually starts the night before. So today we're unpacking nighttime routines, why they matter, the science behind winding down, and how to build one that actually helps you sleep and feel like a human the next day. So Rachel, why don't you get us started with one of your highs and one of your lows from this past week?
Okay, so I am fresh off a trip of going back home and visiting family and grandparents and parents and great-grandparents. It was very wholesome and very quick and crazy. So that's one of my highs. My other high, I said it before, but like this is the real full week of my kids being in school for full days, which is not really a full day for anybody that does carpool because essentially your day ends at 2:30 p.m. But for us, we'll take what we can get, like, you know, having a couple of hours to feel like a human and work and not have to work over a screaming child or like getting really into something and then needing to pause because your kid needs to be changed or fed or played with or whatever has been like, woo, it's been like 2 days and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So it's been really, really nice to have that again. And loving this conversation because I'm now in the process of creating a new routine for myself because, this is the first time I'm in this situation in a couple of years. I would have to say though that my down in that or like my like poo of the week is and this is really like where therapists have to therapize themselves because now it's like if I don't get enough done in those hours, my brain goes, well, you don't have a baby as an excuse during those hours, so why didn't you get more done? And really struggling with that mindset. And all the mamas out there probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's just like you want to do everything. But at the end of the day, you're still like morning time, I'm still dealing with my kids. Afternoon, I'm still dealing with my kids. Nighttime, I'm still dealing with it's a lot of hours that you're still parenting. A lot of people have like caretakers or nannies go pick up their kids and then take them to after school programs and whatever. So they don't really get into it until maybe like 6:30, 7:30. The minute it's like 2:30, I'm back on mom mode. It's not that many hours to give myself some grace, but still you're like, okay, you have these hours that you haven't had before. Chop, get to it. Like, why are you not getting more done? And so when the end of the day comes and I see all these piles of laundry or dishes or I didn't get to this or I didn't get to that, I get really frustrated with myself as like, why didn't you get more done? So I am navigating that thought process because obviously it's not healthy and not helpful and also not true. Like, we do the best that we can with the time that we have, but we all have that negative voice, therapists too, and we have to fight it.
We're not immune.
Actively fight it.
For sure. We need a petition to have more hours in the day. I think that would help a lot.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Or just like, I would rather petition for just less things to do.
You know what, Rachel? You are on point.
I'm on to something.
You're on to something. So let's get this going. We need to get a bunch of signatures. And I don't know. I guess we have to petition God. I'm not sure he'll listen with that. So for me, I would say that I guess a low would be, there's just been a lot that has gone on over the last week that really threw me off my normal life and my normal schedule. So that's tough. And I'm really excited for this episode too, because one of the things that I noticed that I've been struggling with getting back to normal living is like going to bed and having that routine. I'm such a creature of routine and habit that and I try to be flexible. I really do, because it is part of life, and I
Yeah.
am. However, getting back on the normal with the normal routines, that's really, really tough for me. So, one thing that I'm really excited about talking about today is just a reminder for myself as to how to get back on track with my normal nighttime routine, because sleep has been a little bit crazy over the last week and a half, I would say. So I guess that would be a low for me. And then high, again, it's been a pretty chaotic week, but I would say that I have started a new show. It's called Outer Banks on Netflix, and it is a really good show.
Oh my gosh, Steph, you're very late to this game, but I'm
I
so happy
know.
you're joining it. I
So
thought
you
that they
watched
like
it?
I watched it like years ago, but I thought that they stopped it. Is it still
No, they're
going?
having another season come out next year. So, well, I'm about in season two. So I started it a little bit, but I actually been able to watch it over the last couple
Mhm.
days, and it's such a good show. It's so
I'll tell
riveting.
you what it is. It's very underrated that I think it as therapists, it's very interesting to us because each teenager's family dynamics is so complicated that we're sitting there psychoanalyzing their situations the whole time and then watching why each, essentially they really are supposed to be playing children. But
Yeah.
like watching how each person with their character traits and their sensitivities, and one of them has an alcoholic father, an abandoned parent, and the parent that is so obsessed with money and career that they don't even know their own, each one. And then I think one of them has like the step parent. So
Mhm.
it's dealing with the dynamics of all that in a therapist's brain. It's so funny because I feel like there's two type of therapists. They're the ones that watch shows where they want to completely shut their brain off and they don't want to have to think at all. And then we have the therapists like me and Steph, where every single time we turn something on, we're just like,
Exactly. That's so funny that you mentioned this, because that is exactly something that I'm doing watching this show. And then I have such empathy, like well, I can't say anything without spoilers coming out in case anyone hasn't watched it or whatnot. But it's like, oh, that makes so much sense why that person acts like that,
is
even though
that
it
way.
seems
Yes.
so
Oh my
crazy.
goodness. No, 100%. So the only thing I will say is like, I think I'm on season 3 now. I think that's what we're
Mhm.
up to. 3, whatever. It's getting a little bit, I don't want to say repetitive, but
Mm.
how like the whole storyline is around them finding treasure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, all right, I'm over the treasure thing, but like
I'm more into the dynamics than
I'm
the
more into the
storyline.
dynamics. So I think like once they've revealed a lot of the dynamics,
Mhm.
my interest in it starts to slowly be like, all right, we get it. You have these issues. You have to work through your daddy problems. And then,
Mhm.
so I'm interested in what they're going to do. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with another season, but
Mhm.
enjoy the ride because for the time that I watched, I didn't know they were coming out with another season, but for the time that I watched, I was very invested.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I plan on it, and it's like I just want to watch it all. And when you're thinking about it, like when you're not watching
No,
it.
no, 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 no. I think I like. I'm sorry, I'm using this word so inappropriately, but I really think I binge watched it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no joke. I couldn't. I couldn't turn it.
It's kind of the only way to watch it. It's just so riveting, really. So, if you guys have watched it, let us know what your experiences were with it, and if
Yes,
you're also just as obsessed.
yes, please, guys. Also, like, in case you are new here, Steph and I are very into our shows and our movies. So,
Hmm.
whenever we're opening conversations to that, please chime in with all the opinions, thoughts, comments, and
And
if you have anything to tell us.
recommendations.
Yes, thank you. Recommendations. I could not think of that word. My brain is recommendations because we're always into it. So, okay, let's get into this.
Hmm. So
So,
basically, I know we already covered a little bit about why we're both excited for this session today. And a lot of what we've seen is this is another thing that could be really like Instagram aesthetics that we're aspiring to. And we're going to try to cut through all of that and really talk about how these small nighttime or maybe even larger nighttime rituals or routines can be so beneficial for our sleep and our mental health. And a lot of it, it's also boundaries with ourselves with regards to the scrolling. And I know we've talked a little bit about this we touched on this, I think, a couple times throughout past sessions. So that's what we're really aiming for today, and cutting through all of the other stuff and really helping you and us get to what is really going to be helpful for us when it comes to nighttime routines.
Yeah. So, like, quick disclaimer here and confession. As I'm navigating this conversation with Steph, I'm fully talking to myself because this is an area that I really struggle with. I think for anyone who is either A, a parent, or B, somebody who works really, really, really hard all day and they're on all day long and you just don't feel like a person, then the end of the day comes and you're struggling between, I just want to enjoy myself and feel like a person. I need to like shut my brain off before I actually start putting myself to sleep. I want to get all the things done in the evening that I'm not getting during the day. You struggle with the balance of time in the evening. And if you really think about it, if you're waking up at a working hour of the morning and early in the morning, and you're the kind of person who is going to need sleep. And when I say the kind of person who's going to need sleep, we all need sleep. Let me just start with that. But I really do believe that some people can function on less sleep than others. I don't think it's beneficial to your health. That's a separate conversation. But I know for me, for myself, if I don't get a certain amount of hours of sleep, I'm just like, I'm not a human. I can't function. I can't drive. I can't formulate sentences. So finding that time between giving yourself the enough hours of sleep and then getting all these other pieces in, it really is a struggle for all of us. And so as we're saying this, I don't want anyone to think that I'm just like, oh yes, I've got it down pat, I'm perfect at this. Absolutely not. This is something I struggle with all the time. And I'm with all of the listeners who are like, oh my gosh, like, how am I supposed to do this? This sounds kind of like the picture perfect Instagram post of, do people really do this? We can really do it. It just takes practice and discipline and creating new healthy habits. And I am with you in the journey of getting myself to do this, because I have nights that are better than others, but it is something that I have a hard time with, because in the evening, I just want to shut my brain off, but not sleep yet. And I want to feel like a person outside of motherhood or all my other obligations, being a therapist, whatever. And it really is hard to, be your own parent and say, no, it's bedtime now, go to sleep.
Yeah, it's boundaries, really.
Boundaries with yourself. Yes.
Mhm.
Refer back to our boundaries conversation. But just to get into it, and this is probably the most hot topic and the most hot piece of night routine that I think most of us are very aware of, is the laptops, TVs, phones, the screens, the screen time. Guys, screen time is not only bad for kids, it's bad for adults. And the matter of the fact is that the artificial light, it really delays melatonin and it keeps the brain in during the day mode. It really makes it so much harder for you to sleep. Something I tell all of my clients and myself, still working on keeping to it. But if you want to, let's say, go to sleep at 11 p.m., 10:30 p.m., 10 p.m., get rid of the screens, because it takes a minute for your brain to come down from all that artificial light. And yes, for those of you who use like the blue light glasses, it helps, but it's not doing all of it. You really need to shut your brain from the screens. And by the way, this is just talking about the light from the screen. This is not even to mention the fact that the constant scrolling or looking at different images, or especially in today's world, the algorithms of social media are literally designed to hold your attention. They're designed to keep you stimulated. So telling yourself to stop it in the middle of you being stimulated, it's very, very difficult. It really takes a minute and it really does take discipline. So if you want, do it in stages. Like say, okay, I'm not ready to get rid of my phone, but I'll get off of the apps at this hour, or I'll only use my phone or my Kindle or whatever it is to read a book at this hour, or listen to music. Or I know some people are into the ASMR videos, something that's going to help wind you down a little bit. Because it's, in addition to the light, it really is what it is that you're engaging with on these screens that is also keeping you awake and also takes you a hot minute to come down from.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people say, okay, but I go to sleep with music and my music is on my phone. I'm with you. I also very much used to go to sleep with music a lot. Um, Guys, I'm sorry, but like we're in 2025, figure it out. There's a million other ways for you to listen to music and to look at your phone. Keep your phone away from you and leave a playlist on, use a different device. Sorry, like I'm calling you out. That's not an excuse.
iPods. So bring them back. Bring iPods and MP3 players back.
Yeah, honestly, I liked having that one device that was adjustment for your music. I
Yeah.
don't know what it was about that, but I think there was something really amazing where you weren't getting messages in the middle of like, oh my gosh, like today I was jamming out to the new Jonas Brothers album. Sorry for anyone who is a
I
Jonas
didn't
Brothers
think you're
fan.
still there.
They just came out. I don't know. Hello. I don't know what is happening to the world, but all of us 90s kids,
Mhm.
all of the people that we used to listen to are coming up with new albums. Like, I'm listening to the Jonas Brothers. I'm listening to Jesse McCartney. I'm listening. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, the Backstreet Boys are on tour,
I know they're
and
on the tour.
I'm just like, I'm a very happy camper right now. And there's just so much to listen to. But I'm in the car, like taking my kids to school. And I dropped off my older one. So my baby like can't really fight back on the music that I pick because generally it's not what I get to pick. And I'm just jamming out and I get to this like really good part. And all of a sudden I get like a call or I get that classic thing you're like singing on the top of your lungs to Celine Dion, and then the GPS goes, please turn right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not the
Screw
time,
you.
And so I think like the whole concept of like the iPod was just so nice where there was no disturbance. It's like you and your music. And it was almost a form of therapy where you're just removed from everything else.
Mhm.
And I know people could like, put their phones on airplane mode and stuff like that, but it's just not the same.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you there. And we
I
don't.
second you on the iPod. But going into really some of the sleep science that some of you might know about, some of you might not, but the body really needs cues to shift into rest. And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Removing all of these things that are stopping your body from going into a space of resting and decompressing and actually falling asleep and falling asleep into a good, healthy, deep sleep and a deep REM cycle. Because I know a lot of us have those nights where we're not even sure if we're awake, we're sleeping, we're tossing, we're turning. That is not productive sleep. You will wake up from a night like that still feeling tired. And a lot of what we do before we sleep really can dictate what our actual nighttime is like in terms of those REM cycles and our quality of sleep. So we want to create, a darker room, keeping that quiet, even if you are listening to music. What kind of music are you listening to? Is it extremely loud? Keeping it in cooler temps. And by the way, this is very much a real thing. I used to argue with my mom all the time that I couldn't sleep in the heat because we were the kind of family that was, trying to keep away the air conditioner for as long as possible. And I would just cry. I'm like, Mom, I cannot sleep. And she's like, people did it for years. Figure it out. And I remember going to the pediatrician and telling her, I this is like really not a joke. I can't sleep in the heat. And she actually explained to me that when the room or the person's body is in too high of a temp, they actually are unable to sleep because the blood isn't flowing properly. And so that really keeps you awake. So for those people who don't understand why they need it to be so cold to go to sleep, that is why. Some people's blood just doesn't circulate as properly when it is not cold enough and it's really too hot and uncomfortable. So some people will be able to sleep through it, maybe sleep uncomfortably, but they'll be able to fall asleep. People like me, you literally just won't even sleep no matter how tired you are. So fun tip, make sure that the temperature and just the space around you is conducive to you sleeping comfortably and being able to really fall into that deeper sleep. Okay, decision fatigue. Without routines, night turns into procrastination spirals. So you're thinking, right? I talked about it before. There's so many things that we want to get done in the middle of the night. I want to finish the dishes. I want to finish the laundry. Let's just get to 3 more emails. I want to watch 1 more episode. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's hard because as adults, the nighttime is our freedom in all reality for a lot. I mean, some of us are working at night as well. Some of us are splitting the night between work and free time. And it's really hard to tell yourself, let me take away that little amount of free time that I have. It really is hard to do that. And I think a balance of that is really making sure that you're giving yourself pockets of moments where you feel like a human during the day. So you don't have all of that pressure really riding on you just at night to get everything you want done in the human experience in those few hours at night that you have. And also reminding yourself, and I say this a lot to the clients I work with who are in their like later teens and 20s. I'm like, have you ever regretted going to sleep early? And they're like, no. I'm like, how many mornings do you wake up feeling horrendous and you need to take on the entire day? And it's like you could barely open your eyes and the whole day feels miserable. And it's just, you're so exhausted. It really like kills the rest of your day. And I tell them, I'm like, when you're planning your night, keep that feeling, that physical feeling in mind and how you don't want to feel that way. Because at the end of the day, when your brain is telling you, like, I want to stay up a little later to play a couple more games, like video games or watch one more episode, really think to yourself, is it going to be worth it for me to feel this icky all day tomorrow, for me to be crawling my way out of bed? And a lot of the time that in itself is strong enough as an adult for you to make that decision to go to sleep, because you're just going to feel so not yourself and not productive the next day. And really keeping in mind as well, and I said this before, that's why I said some people could function on more sleep, but it's not healthy. Not just physically, but mentally, health is very much linked to sleep, especially poor sleep, right? So it really can create higher levels of anxiety, higher levels of depression, definitely irritability. Regular sleep is just so important. The same way that sleep hygiene and hygiene in general are important, those things really help with your emotional regulation throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your life. For a person to sleep properly, it's key to open up the door to at every other part of your life. If you want to have healthy communication, healthy relationships, productivity at work, be able to show up for your family members, be able to push yourself in ways that you want to push yourself towards your goals, none of that is going anywhere if you don't get proper sleep. And if you are one of those people where you can run on less sleep, I'm going to tell you right now, it is going to catch up with you one way or another, whether you see it mentally, you see it physically. Pay attention to your mood. Is your mood shifting? Because those things are very much connected to not sleeping enough. And it's an unfortunate reality, but we do need sleep. And us being adults doesn't mean we need less sleep. Sometimes I'm like convinced that we need more. But we're humans. We need a rest. But let's just bust a myth for a quick second. You don't need a 90-minute skincare tea ceremony routine. Okay. It's nice. I'm all for doing the self-care at night. But if something is taking more time away from your sleep to the point where it's like thinking to yourself, is this really necessary? Take that moment and ask yourself that question, because if you're doing something that's taking an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's taking away from your sleep time, it really better be worth it. Because a lot of the time it's not. I know that for me, it's more with like the morning. I tell myself, okay, I don't need that much makeup. Like, I don't need that much time to pick out an outfit. We're going to quickly throw something on. I need sleep. So obviously, to each their own. You need to pick, the parts that make up your day. And obviously part of that is your self-care. And that's part of who you are and makes you feel good. And that is definitely important. But the whole aesthetically pleasing routines that you see on social media, it's really not always in your best interest. Sometimes it looks really pretty and really relaxing and you're like, oh my gosh, that looks so nice and what a luxurious way to end a day. But at the end of the day, it doesn't show you the amount of time, effort, and a lot of the time, money and energy that it takes to set up those things and to actually do them. So do the self-care, do the things you enjoy within reason. Again, Steph and I's favorite thing. It's all about the balance.
Yeah. And comparison can really come in hard here, not only when it comes to the nighttime routine, but something that you and I and pretty much everyone has heard is you need 8 hours of sleep. And going back to the idea of how many hours of sleep you need, it actually is like the average of what people need. And obviously it changes throughout a person's lifetime
Mhm.
and it varies from person to person. So generally speaking, what we see is between 6 to 10 hours for the average like adult is what is beneficial. And that it doesn't, just because someone else needs 6 hours doesn't mean that that's enough for you. And it's really important to be honest with yourself and experiment to understand, how many hours of sleep do I truly need that actually helps me to function better. And if it's 10 hours, don't judge yourself because of that. That's okay. It's just what your body needs, and we don't need to judge that or anything like that. And Rachel, I'm so glad that you started off with you talking about how these boundaries are hard for you, like your boundaries with yourself, and the way that you explained it too, because a lot of us can get away with just doing so many things during the day that it feels like, well, now I have a choice to make where I can actually have time for myself or I can sleep. And that's a really tough one. And what I said earlier on, my routine has really been thrown off. So I'll throw myself under the bus. Last night was not the nighttime routine that I would have liked. In fact, I lay down in bed and I put on my TV, and normally I put on like a nighttime ambiance to give me some type of noise and like some little bit of light. But on YouTube suggested, as you guys all probably know by now, I'm really into true crime. So YouTube, of course, suggested this really crazy like murder story. And I'm like, you know what? I'll listen to it for like 3 minutes. So half an hour later when it's finished, then I'm like, that's probably going to creep in, and it will probably creep into my dreams. So this video looks really interesting and it was like funny ring camera, like the craziest thing caught on doorbell cameras. So I watched that. And then one other video came up. I'm like, okay, I'm not ready just yet. And this was past my bedtime. I always say I have a bedtime. It's past my bedtime. And then it was like the funniest like YouTube videos or whatnot. And it was a compilation of that. So I went to sleep a lot later and stimulated my brain a lot more than it needed to. It took me a little bit more time to go to sleep. And that is something that I am hoping that this is going to be a good reminder, this session, to bring back the boundaries with myself, bring back the routines that work. And it's a constant cycle of reworking it and adjusting with changing
Mhm.
circumstances of life. So just a
Yeah.
friendly reminder.
It's so funny also. I don't know if you ever get this in session stuff when I'm working on sleep hygiene with people. A lot of the time they tell me, you don't understand. Like, I can't fall asleep. Like, I'm trying, but I can't fall asleep. And I'm asking them, what are they doing when they're trying to go to sleep? And what's really interesting to me is in the Orthodox Jewish world, it's like this ongoing joke that when Friday comes and all of our devices are shut off and we're having Shabbat, everyone jokes about how they're literally falling asleep at the table. And the minute their head like hits the pillow, they're out. And I'm like, that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? That's very interesting because I mean, granted that on a spiritual level, it's a day of rest on Saturday and Friday and emotional rest, spiritual rest, but also physical rest. A lot of people that it's the day that they get the most amount of sleep. And granted that it's also the end of the week and you are drained. But that being said, I mean, at the end, even if it's the end of the week, not everyone's weekend is always like rest and recovery. So sometimes on a Monday, you're really exhausted too, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And I'm not so convinced that the fact that it's a Friday is what's making you fall asleep in 25 seconds. And I just find it really interesting. I always say to my Orthodox clients, I'm like, why don't we try like a Shabbat routine during the week and let me know what happens when your head hits the pillow. And it's funny because I, by the way, had a very similar night to you 2 nights ago where I just watched too many episodes of Friends. And I partially don't even regret it because they just make me so happy. But I was exhausted the next morning. I really was completely exhausted. And then last night I said to myself, we are not doing that again. And my brain was trying to convince me, like, no, you're not going to fall asleep. You need to watch some shows, blah, blah. I got into my bed after I showered. And I was like, Rachel, just put your phone down for 1 minute. Put it down for 1 minute. I was out in 10 seconds. I was finished. And like, it's just, we really just have to have that discipline. That's really what it comes down to. And just, it's funny and I joke about it, but really, I mean, whether you're Jewish or not, try the Friday night routine where you remove electronics and see what happens, because you'd be really surprised how fast your body is gonna pass out without all of these devices around you.
Totally. And also I wonder if part of it's like permission to rest, because
Yes,
I
I
don't.
think that that's a beautiful thought as well, and I agree with that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the mental health side of nighttime. Rachel had talked a little bit about this as well, where we have different signals to our brain that sleep is coming. So our nervous system wants to recognize that it's nighttime, that it's safe. And a lot of time when our nervous system these days are so much, there's so much going on and it's so much activated, it's really easy to just keep that going instead of trying to find a way to signal to your brain that rest is coming. And that's where routines are helpful. That's where the environmental changes, where, I mean, think about cavemen days. They didn't have YouTube, they didn't have TikTok, they didn't have all these things. And generally speaking, your body was okay, well, it's getting dark out. Maybe I have a couple of candles if fire was invented by that time. And then after that, you're going to sleep. And that is what we want to almost create to some extent. I know it's not going to be the same, but listening to the environmental cues when it starts to get dark, that's when we want to start winding down. And while this routine doesn't have to be like a 7-hour routine or anything like that, it can start early on, and it doesn't mean you're going right to bed right after that. And we're going to talk more about the practical steps of that a little bit later. Something that I think is really important to note is that sleep regularity and consistency is generally more important than how much sleep you get. While the amount of sleep you get is really important, and I hope that you can find that sweet spot where this is how I optimally function, that's important. But if you want to feel more rested and that you have this routine, going to sleep and waking up at a regular time or within an hour of the same time each day, that's really, really helpful, because our brain likes that routine and knowing what's coming, knowing when it's going to be woken up. I know this is really, really hard, especially for my college clients, my college age clients, because I get it. The weekends you're partying, you're having sleepovers, you're doing all the things, you're dating, and you're probably going to sleep late and all of that. And you're probably waking up at the crack of dawn during the week when you have classes. If there's any way that you can try to work on that, we would highly encourage that. I know you want to live your life, and I totally understand and respect that. But it is something that is really worthwhile looking at and seeing how you might be able to work within the context of your life to try to create a little bit more consistency and regularity. We also talked about in our morning routines about the idea of control versus chaos. Just like we want to start our mornings with predictability, we also want to end our days with more predictability. And that is so calming to the nervous system, and it signals to the nervous system we're safe. And safety is a big factor that we're going to want to feel and connect with in order to sleep. Because think about it. If you feel unsafe, you're probably not likely to get a good night's sleep or fall asleep at all. Another part of it is signaling to yourself that you are worth taking this time and energy to keep your promises at night for the next day. You're taking care of the future you. So I know, Rachel, you wanted to watch Friends. I wanted to watch YouTube, and I partially don't regret it either, but I'm a little bit more tired today. And it is nice to take care of yourself ahead of time, where the next day you are preparing yourself for success. A good morning routine starts with a good nighttime routine. And if you're not someone who wakes up with the sun shining and singing lovely like praises or anything like that, maybe the night before is when you are preparing your breakfast or setting out your clothes, making sure everything that you need for the next day is in its spot and ready to roll. That is something super helpful. And it also helps with stress prevention. We don't want our mornings to feel like emergencies, like we talked about last session. And the nights with routine is going to help make that less likely to happen, that those mornings are like emergencies and where everything is chaotic and all over the place. I find too, and I'm sure you do as well, Rachel, that your clients are, when they really do work on sleep hygiene and regularity and sleep routines, that they often are more grounded and able to do the therapy work. And we see that in
Mhm.
and of itself, that kind of shifts the mental health, some of the mental health struggles that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, by the way, to your point, if we have a night like that and Steph and I are really speaking unfiltered, we were like, okay, we didn't even really regret it because we enjoyed it so much. But here's the thing, that is also part of the balance. So I had a night like that. And then the next day, I corrected myself and I
Mhm.
went to sleep at a normal time and went straight to bed and followed a healthy sleep hygiene. So even if you're not always getting it, right, we don't want to fall into the cognitive distortions. It's not we don't have to create a generalization, and we don't have to create a might as well type of mindset just because you had one or two or even three bad nights in a week where you weren't following proper sleep hygiene, where you weren't getting yourself enough hours of sleep. You don't need to continue doing that. Make sure that you're getting proper nights. And I don't want to say catching up on sleep because, quite frankly, scientifically, it really doesn't work that way. That being said, trying to get yourself as many normal, healthy nights as possible is
Mhm.
better than just saying, well, I'm already not doing this. Might as well just go to sleep at 3 a.m. every single night. No,
Yeah.
no.
We don't
Um,
want to get into that all or nothing mindset. And with all this being said, we also want to take a moment to recognize that while we are here talking about sleep, there are so many more factors at play than simply a night routine,
mhm,
and some things that are going to override a nighttime routine. And a wonderful nighttime routine is not going to supersede mental health issues that might be causing sleep disruptions, maybe heightened anxiety. Well, it is kind of, sometimes sleep is worsening the symptoms. It's kind of a catch-22 because we need to be simultaneously working on all of that. But that's something we just want to bring to the forefront. Some sleep disruptions that might be more physiologically based, like
mhm.
insomnia or night terrors. In that case, it really might be worth it to look into getting a sleep study to try to address that. And also, like, not feeling safe in your own home, or maybe not even having a home. Those things are obviously going to supersede anything that we could possibly talk about in this session with regards to a nighttime routine. So we did just want to address that, and those things need to be addressed first before you start um, worrying overly so about a nighttime routine.
Yeah. And I did want to just take a moment, and we're not going to go into too much detail because this episode's really not about that. But I did want to take a moment to just acknowledge some of the sleep disorders that may be causing you to have a hard time with sleep. Because, as Steph said, this is only going to go so far. And if you are struggling truly with sleep, quite frankly, a sleep hygiene routine is not going to fix that. So, some of those things, like Steph said, insomnia, night terrors, obstructive sleep apnea, narcolepsy. If you're struggling with any type of sleep related breathing disorder or circadian rhythms, sleep wake disorders, or parainsomnias, which, by the way, if you struggle with parainsomnias, you should really, really, and night terrors. And a lot of these, you can talk to your therapist about that as well, because a lot of these are very much interconnected to mental health, especially night terrors. Sometimes insomnia and parainsomnias are very much related to mental health. So please bring those things up with your therapist because they can be worked on further than just discussing a night routine. Um, and I just want to take a moment to say, if you're suffering with one of these, we really do feel for you. It's very hard. That balance for you might look very different. This is all, take it with a grain of salt, because every conversation that we have, it's going to be in the context of what works for you and what your life and what your setup looks like. So I just want to acknowledge that for a minute. But a couple of other pitfalls of really the nighttime routine. We talked about the comparison trap, right? So not everything needs to be this aesthetic, beautiful, pleasing thing. You might not make your bedroom look like a spa, but maybe lighting a single scented candle and taking a moment to spend 20 minutes reading a book might be your spa night before you go to sleep, and that might help you decompress. Rigidity around not just nighttime routine, but any type of routine. If you're the kind of person that's creating a 10-step process before you go to sleep and then you miss a piece of that and you are losing it and having anxiety, first of all, go straight to your therapist and talk about that, because we need to be working on that. And second of all, that's really not the point. We're not trying to, first of all, create unattainable goals. I say this all the time, and Steph said this, when we create any type of goal for ourselves, any type of goal in therapy, any type of goal with creating new habits, the point isn't to create a goal that's out of reach, or that if we're not attaining the goal the way that we want to or as fast as we want to, that we should feel bad about ourselves. And if you're seeing that come up, or the rigidity really start to take over, that may be a moment to take a pause and just reflect on what's going on for you. We really don't want to be using routines as a punishment. So for example, if you are the type A personality and you're like, well, I'm not going to get this type of self-care if I didn't get this much studying done, that's not healthy at all. Or if you're like, if you're struggling with self-esteem issues and you're almost thinking, I didn't do something that I wanted to today. I don't care how exhausted I am. I'm going to do task A, B, and C. And that's almost a form of subconscious punishment. Not healthy, not healthy. And this connects to so many of the other conversations that we have, where we want to look into the intention behind why we're doing what we're doing. And if you're finding any of these things ring a bell for you or connect to you, or you're hearing this and going, I wonder if I do that, definitely something to look into and open up a conversation with your support system, with your therapist, and just seeing, why am I setting up the night or the morning or whatever it is in this way? Am I doing something in a way that's more harmful than helpful to myself? And with everything else in a healthy, positive type of psychology, we want to reframe this as supportive and not, aiming for perfection. We're not always going to get it right. Steph and I are sitting here telling you we ourselves struggle with this, and we definitely don't get it right. We didn't get it right the last few nights. So, just give yourself some grace, be patient with yourself. This is not an easy thing to accomplish, but it should be on your list of goals, because quite frankly, for your mental and physical well-being, we need to try and work, everyone, all of us, on our sleep hygiene and making sure that we get enough rest and enough productive hours of sleep, where the sleep quality really is at a better level. And by the way, if you're finding yourself having a hard time with sleep, and none of the things that I just mentioned are feeling relatable to you, talk to your doctor, talk to your therapist, talk to a neurologist, talk to someone, because you need to be getting sleep. And if something is stopping that, and you're not aware of what it is that's stopping that, play detective and try and figure it out. You're your biggest advocate. And this is really one of the most important things in life, is making sure that you're getting a good quality of sleep.
Yeah. We can't emphasize that enough, that talk to someone. I know that for my clients, and I'm sure Rachel, your clients as well, that when there has been a sleep issue, that none of our interventions were working or doing much of anything, we make
Yeah.
the necessary referrals. And ideally, your therapist or your doctor is going to be willing and able to make those referrals and having connections to do so. Okay. Because this might be very new to you. And this is something that it's like, well, where do I go from here? And hopefully, whichever professional that you're choosing to speak with on that, they're going to be someone who is a little bit more familiar and can get you to the right referral location to help you with that. So let's talk about some practical tips to incorporate or to consider within your nighttime routine. And one thing that's so important that Rachel had said, I want to emphasize again, this isn't something that we need to do an overhaul with everything. If none of this is resonating with you, that's fine. What we would encourage you is just pick one thing that maybe you can be working within your nighttime routine, adding into your nighttime routine, if that's something that you think could be helpful. Maybe you're finding that what works for you right now is working, or what you're doing right now is working. Awesome. Then that's not something that you really have to worry about. Maybe you hear this and maybe there's something that could be helpful, maybe not, but take it for what it's worth. Help yourself be honestly reflective with yourself about how your routine, if you have a routine, is working for you right now, and what changes may be something helpful. And if you do start to work on changes, just choose one at a time. We don't want to make it unattainable because that's not going to be sustainable to start. And then we're going to be back at square one and probably more resistant to doing the work that could be helpful for you. So, of course, caffeine. This is coffee and counseling. We are all about the caffeine. We are all about the coffee. However, that it's really important to be mindful about how coffee and caffeine affects you. Some people, Rachel and I both talked about this. We can drink coffee right before bed and go to sleep. A lot of people aren't like that. I know a lot of people who are, but
We
maybe,
don't suggest it. We do not suggest it to
yes,
other
we
people.
don't. It's
We
probably
don't
a problem.
recommend it at all.
So let's say for you, after 11 a.m., if you have any type of caffeine, it's gonna, and it can absolutely stay in your system for that long,
Mhm.
where you are having your sleep affected. So be really honest with yourself. Maybe you can't have more than one cup of coffee at all during the day. Maybe it can't be after a certain time. Be mindful and reflective on that. Rachel, I mentioned the blue light blocking glasses. I have that. It's something super helpful for me, especially when I'm working. It helps me to avoid like the blue light headaches that, or tension headaches that I guess I get as a result of the blue light. But it can be really helpful to help promote melatonin doing its thing. It's not going to be the be all and end all. Ideally, no, none of those devices on would be best, but most of us just don't live in the world where we're going to be doing that. So it could be helpful to put on, buy a inexpensive pair of blue light blocking glasses to help you with that. Having a phone curfew where you're putting your phone outside. Ideally, it'd be awesome if you left it outside the bedroom. Most of us don't do that for many reasons. I know I like to keep mine with me because I'm afraid that God forbid there's an emergency, no one can reach me. Although
Right.
I am really really looking into getting a phone that's just for that purpose. So I can, that's like a flip phone, something really
Yeah.
old school. And I'll let you know if I end up doing that. I've thought about this for quite some time, but it's also my alarm. And that's
Right.
what a lot of us use for our alarm. Having boundaries with yourself when it comes to your phone is really
Mhm.
important on that.
There are
So,
also a lot of blockers. Sorry to cut you off, Steph. There are a
no.
lot of things you can buy today and also
Mhm.
apps that if you have the truth is I should really do this for myself, but if you're like in the middle of a scrolling like black hole and you are not even realizing how much time is going by, it's great to have this because you won't even realize 30 minutes went by, an hour went by, 2 hours went by, however long you get sucked into it. And these blockers will just shut everything off, whether you like it or not. And that can be really helpful, especially when you're the kind of person where you really do want to do this. And in those moments when you're in it, your brain is just unaware of the environment and time and space. And so having this external source kind of come in there and almost be like a robotic parent and shut everything off for you can truly be very helpful. And I've actually had a lot of clients use some of these tools, use timers, use stoppers, and it really is very helpful.
Yeah, totally. And something that I have, and it's on the iPhone, that there's a lot of things that you could do for sleep settings, and my phone automatically does two things that I have created. Where at 10 p.m. it goes into like, it's like an orangey light as opposed to the blue light, which is supposed to
Mhm.
be more mimicking the like a sunset. It's more melatonin friendly. That is something that's helpful. But also, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb with a couple of exceptions if someone needed to get a hold of me, so that I'm not getting all those notifications, because that's not something you want to have constant beeping, constant notifications going off. If you need someone to reach you in the case of emergency, make the exception. You can do that with iPhone, and I'm sure you could do that with any type of phone. So just being mindful of that. Something that I've learned recently, which actually I found to be really truly helpful, is not having a clock visible in your room. That is something that some people are like, "Oh, like what do you mean by that?" But I'm sure all of us have had this experience. I can absolutely say I've had this experience many a times when I did have a clock visible in the room. You wake up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom or something like that. You look at the clock and you start calculating how much time you have left to
Mhm.
sleep. And then you have a hard time falling asleep. You start getting anxiety about it. And it's kind of unsettling when you first starting, not having a clock in a room, not knowing what time it is or anything like that. But you don't need to know. If you have an alarm, it's gonna do its thing. Trust that, and try to make your clock, if you do have a clock, just not visible to you, so that you don't end up going through that. Something that we talk a lot about as therapists are people who struggle going to sleep because they have racing thoughts. Personally, I know that my to-do list, mine, has a hard time shutting off. So journaling can be really helpful, making sure that you have something that I'm going to throw everything down that's coming up to me, whether it's racing thoughts or whether it's like a to-do list, throw it down in a journal and make it known to your brain that you are closing that journal up, closing the app, although it would be better to do it in physical journal as opposed to your phone for
Mhm.
all the reasons we just listed, but not going to rehash all of that. And close that book, put it to the side. I find, and this is something that is not beneficial for everyone, but one thing that I had done for a while is, everyone knows my Gilmore Girls obsession. I know it word for word, and it would be like a comfort show that I would put on the background, because what I found that it did for me, it was enough stimulation that if I wanted to bring my mind to something to hold my attention instead of my
So that
thoughts.
your brain's not racing.
Exactly. But I didn't have to pay attention to it because, again, I could probably replay the entire show in front of you right now without watching it. So, like, that's something that you find your comfort show. I know one of my friends, it's Family Guy, and it's just something that she can have on in the background and just fall asleep to. Maybe that's a creative way that could be helpful for you. We talked about on our last session about having a gentle alarm. You can have gentle bedtime reminders as well. There's the apps that Rachel had said, dimming your lights, red light. I know there's a lot of research on that's really sleep promoting. It does sound a little scary to just wake up to red lights, but who am I to judge? I think it actually would be really helpful. It's something that I'm looking into for myself as well.
Yeah, Miss True Crime. Maybe red lights would do you some good.
Yeah. I'll be waking up to like a mystery going on in my house. And these routines don't have to be super long. Although, with that being said, we would recommend that you do have a period of time where you do have maybe like sections of your routine. You could start winding down about 2 hours in advance if that's possible for you. It's not possible for everyone, but that doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden getting ready and doing all your stuff to get ready for bed. But if you do have a little bit more of a buffer time to start winding down and start that process, maybe you're turning the lights a little lower, that's ideal. But if you cannot do that, that is okay. Like 30 minutes, 10 to 30 minutes is enough for all the things that you might need to do before bedtime. Ideally, again, if we have a little bit longer to start signaling to our brain so our brain can catch up, that's going to be
Mhm.
ideal. And we can bring
Mhm.
the anchor habits into this as well, where if you brush your teeth and maybe do a little skincare, that's enough, because sometimes you're not going to want to do all the things. Maybe it's light stretching, maybe it's a little bit of journaling. You can make it sensory if that's grounding for you, which it usually is grounding for a lot of people, whether that's using like lavender like scents. You can spray your pillows with that. I know that's a big thing. Using
Mhm.
soft lighting, having a comfortable, breathable bed, making it cool, because our body temperature is supposed to drop in the middle of the night. And I know I'm a really hot sleeper, so my house, it gets I turn it a lot colder when I'm going to sleep as opposed to maybe freezing all the time during the day. And I don't want that low. So finding a temperature that works for you and works for the rest of the people in your household, because that might be a little different. I know that's really tough. So figuring that out. Powerful routines can be short, like we said, 5 minutes of stretching, turning off screens, and dimming the lights. That might be your routine. Maybe it's a little bit longer and luxurious. It's a little bit of skincare, drinking a tea, and reading a little bit of a book, or journaling a couple things right before you go to bed. And I think of like the nighttime routines as teaching your nervous system that it's safe to rest, and that you not only are safe, but you need that rest, and giving it a gift to your future self. You are human and you deserve that. And not only do you deserve it, you need it.
Yes, and fun, well, not really fun, but just a fun fact for parents. A lot of the time when you are putting your kids to bed, and you go straight from the bright light of their room to shutting off the lights and saying, go to sleep, you're really not helping yourself and you're not helping the kids go to bed. So, something that can be really helpful is as they're doing their night routine and as you're slowly winding them down, whether it's for me at the minute after I do like dinner, bath, books and sleep. But as we're going back into the room and putting on our pajamas and whatever, I'm already getting the lights lower and lower and lower and lower to signal to their brains that we're going to sleep. And this can be really helpful because when you have the kids just going through their normal routine and then all of a sudden you turn the light off and you're like, good night, even with a night routine, which I know most parents, you guys are doing the night routine, go you, it still can be really difficult for their brains to go from on to off. And just something as simple as dimming that light, or I know a lot of you guys have those little stuffed animals that bring out the cute little night lights into the ceiling or whatever it is, anything like that, even if it's not the exact time that they're actually going to sleep, starting that process of dimming those lights and making it darker in the room can really help the kids go to sleep easier and faster. So that's number one. And just a little bit of a less spoken and potentially less known about form of a tool to help people sleep. And you guys can look into this later on for whoever doesn't know. There's something called ASMR that I know people also find extremely helpful. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's really the concept of just this like tingling, relaxing sensation that people can do through video, through sound. It's really triggered by stimuli such as whispering or tapping or brushing sounds, or when you hear like a marker on the board or you hear people typing on the keyboard, sometimes it kind of sends these tingles up your spine. And in today's world, there's so many types of ASMR, so many versions, so many themes, and different people find different things relaxing. There are ASMR people who are creating an entire scenario for you, like a story time for you. They're checking you into a spa, or they're creating this beautiful imagery. Sometimes it's just trying to get those tingling sensations in your body. The concept behind it is it creates this physiological relaxation. And what ends up happening is there are still actively studies being done as to why this is helping people sleep. And pretty much what we're finding is that it really appears to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that rest and digest mode, it's really helping us go into there. And people have really reported that it shows a reduction in heart rate and an increase in like really relaxation markers. And this helps counter hyperarousal, which very much can be a cause of insomnia. Brain image findings have also showed that it triggers activity in areas tied to like reward and emotional regulation in the brain. So this can really overlap with circuits involved in like social bonding and comfort. When someone speaks gently or talks about having a soft form of touch or a tingling sensation, it's helping that brain get to where it needs to get to in order to slowly fall asleep and enter that REM cycle. And so there's really been a lot of studies that are showing it's helping people fall asleep much faster, but potentially even more importantly, into a deeper sleep and a more restful sleep. Especially, I say this is wonderful for people who struggle with stress and anxiety relief or needing mood regulation. It really just it helps creating that space for you to be able to rest and relax, and very helpful for the racing thoughts. Instead of a show going on, having that in the background. And a lot of the time it works similarly to a visual and audio, guided visual and audio imagery and sound, where it's telling you what to do to help you relax yourself and help you get into that space. So I know the first time I was exposed to it, I thought it was the legit weirdest thing on earth. But it actually, I get it. I found videos that I was like, this is not doing it for me. And this is so strange. I don't even understand what this person is doing. And then I found other ones that it really worked like guided imagery, where they were pretending to check you into a spa. And it was, the sounds are very much on the mic. So all the sounds, or they're describing the smells that would be associated with what the form of place that they're creating, they're really intensifying for you, and it helps you just get to that space. If it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's just a fun, free thing to try if it's something you want to try to help you sleep. I have suggested it to a lot of clients who, because of anxiety, stress, racing thoughts, anger, whatever it is, are having trouble getting their brain to stop and go to that sleepy space, and they have found it incredibly helpful. So whether it's on Spotify or on YouTube or on TikTok, you can find these videos and audios in most places. So if you think that that might be helpful, it's another fun thing to try.
That's a really good idea. And also maybe we'll link in the link in the show notes some possible ones for that, but also the Calm and Headspace app. That just reminded me that those
Yes.
are really big apps for to help with that. There's like bedtime stories and all of that. So take with it what you will.
Yes, absolutely. So let's wrap it up. So the nighttime routines matter because they signal to your brain and your body that it's safe to recharge, that you're allowed to recharge. And a good morning really does start with a good night. The rest of your day is going to start with the night before. So start tiny and stay consistent and make it yours. What works for you? What sounds good to you? If your routine only includes brushing your teeth and shutting down your phone early, that's still powerful. And if that works for you, that's really all that matters.
Perfect. All right. Today we have a listener's question, as we normally do. If you don't know, we take listeners' questions from you guys that you could send over to us on Instagram at Coffee and Counseling Podcast, or email to coffeeandcounselingpodcast@gmail.com. And we will answer, we always choose one and answer it in one of our sessions. So feel free to send that over. And today's listener's question is it normal to feel guilty for resting when I could be doing something productive? I think that's a really good question for today's session as well.
Right.
This is a conversation I have with my clients so often, that we live in a hustle culture, a productivity culture, and value that above everything else a lot of the times. So one way that I recommend, and I start recommending people to think about it, rest in a way that rest is part of the productivity, not to put productivity as a god or anything like that. But I do understand that we all have this desire to be productive. And we also have a lot of shame, I think, when we are not being productive in our culture. So if we can look at it and reframing it, that rest is actually a really powerful part of being productive. That is first and foremost. But separate of that, well, actually, what is more important, separate of that, is that you are a human being. We are not machines. We need rest. Even machines need rest. They normally are not running 24 hours without breaking down at some point. We need rest. We were designed to get sleep at night and also get breaks during the day. So recognizing that as a human being, you need and deserve it. And I bet you that anyone you love, or an animal that you love, you don't shame them for resting, or at least as much as you probably shame yourself. So just maybe those are a couple different ways that you can think about rest to help with that. And to actually answer the one question, is it normal? Normal is a really hard part to answer with that, because I would say that it's very widespread. So if we're looking at normal from that angle, then sure, it's very common that people feel this way, or at least what I witness. Is it something that is beneficial? Probably not. And I would say no, it's not.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. The first thing that came to my mind is I don't like the word normal, because what is normal? It's very common. It's very common. And I think it's something that we all struggle with. But us being the kind of therapists that we are, where we are very into you holding yourself accountable, and we're not into coddling, I think, first of all, there's a difference between rest and relaxation and sleep. So ask yourself, are you sleeping 11 hours? Because maybe you don't need to be sleeping 11 hours. And yeah, you can probably get other things done. If you're sleeping the 8 hours, or 7 hours, or whatever it is, then no, your body literally needs to sleep, not only to be productive, but just to function and be healthy, first of all. And second of all, it's the same thing with, downtime. First of all, I think you have to be realistic with your schedule. If you are having a week that particularly allows for less downtime, then hi, that's the reality of the world. You get less downtime. I'm sorry. Like if you have a work project or a meeting, or it happens to be a really crazy week with your family or your children, whatever it is, then maybe you don't take that extra time to do the fun, calming, chill things that you want to do. You still have to make some version of time for yourself, for your own mental health and sanity. But to what degree, you need to ask yourself, what does your day look like, and work accordingly. And so I think it really is about your situation and what works within your situation, and looking at the necessity versus this would be nice versus the actual luxury. And if you're in a place of this is a luxury at this point and I don't really have time for this, then maybe it's worth looking back into and seeing if we need to rearrange the schedule a drop. But if you're just really feeling guilty for every single moment that you're sitting down, I mean, first of all, go talk to a therapist. And second of all, no, you shouldn't have to. I'm not going to say you shouldn't. You should not have to be feeling that way, because there's no reason for you to feel hard on yourself every time that you are taking a moment.
Perfect. Well said. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for listening to today's session. If you have a nighttime routine that's working, let us know about it. And if it's more of a work in progress, what's one thing you feel inspired to incorporate into your nighttime routine moving forward? If this session hits home, we would appreciate if you share it with someone who needs a softer end to their day. Everything we talked about today will be linked in the show notes. We hope you join us again next Tuesday for our next session.
Thanks for being here. See you guys next week.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Please follow our Instagram at Coffee and Counseling Podcast and send any questions you have about any topic to us via direct message for a chance for your question to be featured in one of our next sessions. You can also email us your questions or topic suggestions at coffeeandcounselingpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to check out some of our other sessions available to you right now. Once you drink up all of those and your coffee, come back next Tuesday for our next session.
The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute therapy or mental health advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapeutic relationship between you and the hosts. If you are in need of support, we encourage you to seek help from a qualified mental health professional. This podcast is not a substitute for individualized care. We do offer individualized therapy. If you're interested in individual therapy with one of us, please visit our practice website and send us an email to set up a free consultation call. All of the links and our contact info will be in the show notes.